What up, y'all? Happy Thursday. It's your girl, UC Kayla, at work on my lunch break, but I'm going to get y'all this episode review from last night's episode of Sistas, Season 4, Episode 19, entitled Benefit of the Doubt, y'all. We're going to get all the way into it. There wasn't a whole lot of action outside of Zatima, but I do have a couple points to make. So we're going to do a traditional breakdown where I go scene by scene. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, please remember to hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and like, comment, and share so I know you like the content, guys. Okay, so we're going to start with scene 1. We started out with Zatima, thank God, and Jake. But I'll get into that. So if you're new here, I start out with telling you what happened in the scene, then we get into my opinion. So let's go. Fatima and Jake pull up. Y'all gonna have to work with me today because it's my brain is on vacation. Okay, Fatima and Zach, there we go. They pull up to the house and Jake is there. I'm not even going to edit that out, guys. Jake is there at the house. He's waiting on Zach because he had to pay that contractor, even though he really could have went home and text him. Anyway, Jake's a weirdo sometimes. He interrupts the surprise once again. Zach been trying to surprise Fatima with this done house for days now. And he's like, hey, never mind, I'll just come back tomorrow. And Zach's like, no, what's up? And he's like, I just wanted to let you know I paid the contractor. And Zach offers to go get him a check right then. And Jake was like, it's cool. We'll do this tomorrow. And he leaves. Then Zach and Fatima go inside. And Zach shows her the finished house as a surprise. And then he presents her with a key and asks her to move in. Fatima was still hesitant because she wants to make sure that they aren't moving too fast. She also wants to keep her own place. But Zach is like adamant that he wants her to sell it because he got them. He can take care of them. And hesitantly, she does agree as well, in addition to moving in. And then they go upstairs to celebrate. Okay, so my opinion. Here goes Jake again with his bad timing. This man has the worst timing in the world. It's like every time something important is supposed to happen, or when he should be somewhere, he's not there, or, you know, whatever. He has the worst timing in the world. But he does seem to mean well for now. We'll see. I don't fully trust Jake, but he's doing right by Zach so far. Far as Zatima, we love to see it. I'm so happy for them, but I do think that Zach got to pump the brakes a little bit. As far as pressuring Fatima to sell her own place, I don't think, and I tweeted that, guys, if you're not following me on Twitter, follow me at thatgirlKaylaD, and it'll be in the description. But I don't think Fatima's really going to sell her place. I think she knows how Zach is. She didn't want to ruin the moment, you know, and she didn't want to, like, you know, we supposed to be happy and it's a romantic moment, and then we get into an argument because I keep going back and forth with you, you know. But I don't think she's going to sell her place, and she shouldn't. Now, once we get a ring, you know, that's different. But just for your boyfriend, because y'all are still in the honeymoon phase of the relationship, no, baby, don't sell your place. I don't think she is. All right, scene number 2. We're at the law firm with Andy and Hayden. Andy tells Hayden to go away, but of course he doesn't listen, and he proceeds to try to fish for info and throw his insults and his little jabs. You know how Hayden does. He don't really want nothing but just to be a nuisance. Andy reads Hayden for filth honey up one side and down the other, and lists all the legal ways that Fatima can protect herself. And finally, she makes him leave. My opinion, Andy got Hayden together, and we love to see it. I'm here for it, you know. Hayden is just pathetic, and you know, him, Gary, and Karen, they need to go to some type of Stalkers Anonymous or some type of rehab or something. But anyway, go Andy. All right, scene number 3, we're at the bank with Sabrina, Preston, and Maurice. Preston comes into the bank to get advice from Sabrina. Y'all, I'm not well today. I don't even know. Sabrina basically tells Preston that he needs to talk to Danny about whatever that he's trying to talk to her about, and that she thinks Danny still likes him. And Preston's like, okay, you know, he says he'll talk to Danny. Maurice comes in as Preston's trying to leave, acting a fool as usual. Then Sabrina calls Karen to make a hair appointment. We'll get into that. Then Sabrina calls Danny and tells her that Preston was there. My opinion, I think Sabrina did the right thing. She gave Preston just enough, but she didn't betray her friend, and she was right. Call Danny. There's nothing I can do to help you. Preston, though, in my opinion, you probably need to focus on yourself, bro, because Danny's being real problematic right now. She's not really trying anymore, and just focus on yourself. And Maurice is a fool, and we already know that. All right, scene number 4. We're back at the Zatima residence with Zach and Fatima. I got it that time. Fatima makes some Alfredo for Zach. Zach tells Fatima that he's going to put the house next door up for rent, because y'all know he got a duplex, so it's double-sided. He's going to put the other side up for rent. They also discuss how the Bellanista stock has made Zach over $2 million at this point, and Fatima advises him to sell it. Fatima is still hesitant about Jake because of Jake's connections to Gary. And Fatima tries to go stay at her house for the night, but of course Zach objects. Shoot, they ain't spent hardly a night apart. Fatima played too much. So she says she'll go get her stuff and then she'll come back to the house. In my opinion, first of all, let's start with the food. Tyler Perry tried it now. All the times y'all know Zach have come into Fatima's house at her apartment, and she be like, I cooked, and they never end up eating anything, or he never eats it. So it's like, we've been waiting all this time for Zach to finally eat Fatima food, and then it's some Alfredo. Bye. Like I tweeted, she might as well have made some hamburger helper. Like, for people that can't cook, they probably like, what's the issue? Baby, that's not real cooking, you know? But okay, Zach better listen to Fatima, though, as far as about those, the stock, selling the stock. You know, Zach always credits Fatima for how he listened to her before, and that made the good changes in his life. So he might want to listen to her again, just because even in his gut, he's not 100% sure to trust Jake or Gary. So I don't know, but I think he needs to listen to Fatima and go ahead and sell, because you rather have something than nothing, y'all. I'm sorry, that's my little notes. Y'all know I'm at work. Scene number 5, Zach calls Jake. So Fatima has left at this point to go and get her stuff, but she's coming back. So Zach has some time to kill. He goes ahead and calls Jake and was like, hey, can you come back, or I'll go ahead and pay you now? And Jake is like, he's close, even though he said he's with his girl, so I guess she lives close. He said he'll come right back. Obviously Jake doesn't have a life, but yeah, in my opinion, I get it. Zach don't want to owe nobody, and that's cool. He's smart. And yeah, scene number 6, we're with Danny and Andy at Danny's apartment. So Andy comes over to talk to Danny, and Danny starts talking about why she's going on a date with Logan that night, and why she's not happy with Preston, and she claims that she was teaching Preston so much, and she don't want to have to teach him so much, and this, that, and the third. I don't know what Danny has taught Preston, but okay. They start talking about Gary, of course, because Danny sees through Andy, and she's like, you don't come here just to come, so what's up? You came to talk about something, and it must be Gary, since you're here to see me. You don't want to hear what Karen has to say. And Andy tries to front, and then she like, you know what, you right. But anyway, they get into it about Gary. Well, not get into it, but they start talking about Gary. And basically, Danny's like, we've already talked about this. Call him. Do whatever you're going to do, because that's what you're going to do anyway. My opinion, I just feel like Danny's all over the place. I mean, sis just coming up with reasons at this point. If you don't want to deal with Preston, I'm going to just say, you know what? We tried and it didn't work out for me. And let it be that. But it is what it is. Preston might be dodging a bullet, to be honest. I don't know. Danny doesn't seem like she's where she was before with Preston. And it's unfortunate that Tyler wrote it like that, because it didn't have to be like that. Like, they were fine. Andy let me down with Gary, because, like, why are we back on Gary again? Anyway, but I did like the sisterhood moment between Andy and Danny, because they're, they were there for each other. However, the advice they're giving each other is literally the blind leading the blind. So, but that's what they do. All right, scene number 7, we're with Sabrina and Karen at Karen's salon, blind leading the blind, part 2. Sabrina comes to get her hair done. They briefly chat about Sabrina's date that night or her love life, and then of course they have to talk about Zach, because they always have to talk about Zach, even though Zach and Karen haven't been together in 2 seasons. But okay, so they briefly talk about, I already said that, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm reading these notes. Karen tells Sabrina that she does like Aaron, but she feels like that she's been using him, because she doesn't really want him like that. And the girls walked in on Karen and Aaron the other night when they were trying to get it on, and she was just like telling her what that was about, and basically just was like, I really wanted something else, and we all know that means that, but he was there. So anyway, Sabrina does actually make some good points to Karen. And then Karen's like, but Zach, I know he hasn't moved on. I know him, he'll go and sleep around and then he'll come back to me. And then Sabrina was like, and that's okay with you? Like, basically, you feel like you deserve that? So Sabrina made some good points, and it was surprising, because normally Sabrina won't say anything to Karen. And then Sabrina was like, I even agree with what Danny said. And Karen was like, you said that? So I was glad that Sabrina didn't just sit there and listen to the madness and be delusional like her friend. Now, my opinion of that is just like, first of all, Karen ain't do nothing but grease Sabrina's scalp. So talking about Karen's special at Karen's Hair Mastery, I have not seen Karen master a style. And I guess the special is to come in and get your scalp oiled, but you already got to have your hair done first. Next up, like, I just don't know how Karen stood there with a straight face and said Zach hasn't moved on. Like, she said those words. I had to go back and rewatch it, of course, to do my notes, but I had to go back and rewatch it. And she literally said he has not moved on. And I'm just like, Karen, are you okay? Like, she's not well. Her Gary and Hayden, they are not well. And I felt like Sabrina made a good point. Because if you feel like this is his pattern or whatever, and he hasn't moved on, and he's doing the same old, why are you okay with that? Why do you want this man? You know, so honestly, it is what it is. Now, my Hot Topic video Monday, y'all remember I did. And if you haven't watched it, go check it out. But Monday's video was about, does Karen really think that Fatima is just a fling for Zach? Or is she, like, just being delusional, or is she in denial, or whatever? And I enjoy all the different perspectives that you guys gave me and all the reasons. And I even agreed with a lot of the things that people said. But I still believe in my heart that the root of Karen's issue, her character's issue, is that jealousy. She doesn't want to lose. She does not want to have to take the defeat that I did. You know, I was under the standards that I would normally have for myself for 3 years, hoping and praying that this man would do better, and he never did. And then some woman comes in and does what I couldn't do. And she had to realize comparison is the thief of joy. And that's the problem. That's why Karen doesn't have any joy. If Fatima haven't stolen her joy, Zach hasn't stolen her joy, Karen has stolen her joy, constantly comparing their situation to her and Zach's situation. And it's just like, you don't have the same Zach. Fatima is not you. You're not Fatima. Zach is not who he was. There's so many different moving parts. And it all boils down to she is jealous. And she has to accept what Zach was saying to her, which is, we're not good for each other. And that's the truth. So at this point, I honestly think that's what Karen's issue is. Jealousy is literally chipping away at her mind because she's losing it. So, all right, scene number 8. We're at Gary's office with Gary and Aaron. Lord have mercy, Jesus, this was crazy. Gary is still spiraling about Andy, and Aaron's trying to calm him down. You know, Cheeto, my hat's off to him. That man acted his behind off, because I truly believed he was crazy last night. So shout out to Cheeto for the part he plays with Gary. Andy then calls Gary as they're in there talking and asks him to meet and talk, and she's trying to be flirty and stuff, and he is literally having a mental battle with himself, but agrees to go over there and tells Aaron that he'll be proud of him and he's not going to lose it. Okay. And then, you know, he goes ahead and goes, and Aaron's like, okay. My opinion, I just feel like Gary needs to check himself into like a full-time facility for treatment, for mental health treatment, or some type of program for therapy and healing. Now, I do have a degree in psychology. I don't have a master's or a doctorate. However, so I'm not qualified to give Gary a diagnosis, but I can see the signs, and I just feel like he needs some treatment. And I think that Andy is very intelligent. Obviously, she's an attorney. She needs to love herself enough to give this man time to do the work that he needs to do on himself, and then maybe they'll have a shot. And then she needs to love Gary enough to let him do the work that he needs to do on himself. Like, you're trying to force something that's not going to work because Gary has not fixed the root of his issues, or address any of the real problems that he was in therapy for, because he had a quack doctor. So it's just like, it's disappointing in Andy. It's scary for Gary. Scary Gary is definitely accurate. It's a mess. And I want Andy to let her intelligence rule over her heart, because she's really using love like a crutch when Andy got good sense. She knows good and well that Gary is not right in the head, and he's not prepared in his heart to have a healthy relationship. And that's all I'm going to say about that. All right, scene number 9. Andy calls Fatima to tell her about Hayden has access to his federal database, which is kind of where we left off last week. And he's been looking at airport footage, and he might be on to something. Andy asked Fatima to tell her if Zach has done anything illegal to acquire that money. Fatima just tells Andy, look, I'll have Zach call you, let him talk for himself. Andy tells Fatima, you know, like, well, okay, you know, after she says it a couple of times, and then she's like, well, I'll see you tomorrow at work. So obviously Fatima can return to work. In my opinion, I mean, Hayden's such a nuisance, and I really want Tyler Perry to make sure that he takes Hayden's character down in a major way. Like, we ain't talking about no love pop on the wrist after all that he's done and put people through. And I'm still not even convinced about this whole him getting access to a federal database, because it's not like Hayden is this really powerful person. He's an attorney, okay? I'm not saying attorneys don't have connections and stuff like that, but for him to have access to a federal database by Tyler Perry, but okay. We'll go with it. We don't have a choice. All right, scene number 10, y'all. We're with Andy and Gary. Again, at Andy's penthouse, Gary comes over to talk. Then he starts having flashbacks because curiosity killed the cat, and he had to be spying on them through that telescope. So now he's flashing back to the things that she did with Robin in that very spot that they're in her penthouse, and he abruptly gets up to leave. And Andy is like, Gary, what's going on? I just said my opinion. I'm not going to be redundant about Andy and Gary. Moving on, scene number 11. Jake and Zach. Y'all know now, when I have to put these two together, it's hard. Jake and Zach. We're at Zach's house. Jake comes to get his check from Zach, and Zach expresses his gratitude to Jake for just not even just that, but just everything he's done to be so helpful to him. And Jake's like, yeah, you're my brother. And Jake does advise Zach as far as his money. He's like, why don't you give me $2 million? I mean, not $2 million, $1 million to reinvest. And Zach is like questioning Zach. See, there I go. Zach is questioning Jake because he's not 100% sure. He's like, yo, I've never had $1 million, so I'm not just going to give you $1 million. So Jake tells Zach that he's going to email him some stuff, and they'll discuss it further, and maybe even do a side deal if he doesn't want to deal with Gary, because we know that Jake works for Gary. Then after Jake leaves, Zach gets a phone call from Tony. Tony is the senator's wife that gave Zach the stock information in season 3 at the airport after he helped her with her bag. My opinion, Zach, just be smart. Oh, Tony, sorry. Also, Tony did tell him while they were on the phone to meet her at the same hotel. So we'll see next week, I guess, if Zach's actually going to go. But my opinion, Zach, just be smart. You know, don't be too hasty. Don't fumble the bag, though, most importantly. And I think everything's going to be all right, because, you know, Zatima has her spinoff, and Zach he's probably going to have that house and his riches and all that. So it'll work out. But, you know, Tyler has to get us riled up at the end of the season. And I also don't think that Tony, the senator's wife, is trying to blackmail Zach. She might be trying to give him a heads up. We saw last week that Hayden saw her on the video and he knew who she was. So Hayden might have reached out to her trying to blackmail she and Zach. You never know. So I think they had like this spooky, you know how the music gets weird and the voice sounded like spooky, but I don't think it's going to be like, oh, she's trying to blackmail Zach for some of that money. I really think that she just wants to talk to him, make sure he's aware of what's going on, and maybe she might even have some more advice for how he can get out of the situation the same way that he got into it. All right, the episode preview, guys. Now this is for the end of the episode. BET did go ahead and show the extended trailer last night. It's all over Twitter. If I find a good copy of it, I'll retweet it on my Twitter, but this is just going to be me going over the preview that was at the end of the episode. So Andy is on the elevator trying to get away from Gary. Danny leaves the double date with Sabrina and Bio comments on Danny's beauty and asks Sabrina if she can get Danny to come back. Aaron is telling Gary to stop because he's obsessed with Andy. He's not in love with her. Fatima is in the tub telling Zach that she's a very patient woman, but don't take advantage of it. And Andy is on her phone with Karen, and then she asks Karen if she's in front of Zach's house, and Karen says, so what if I am? And then we see Karen at Zach's house walking up to the front door talking about they need to talk about the baby. Oh boy, my opinion, I just feel like Andy should have held her ground. Again, I've said what I got to say about that. Andy, when you entertain a clown, you become part of the circus. So now you're running around your house like a crazy person because you invited crazy into your house. So there you go. Sabrina better not call Danny back for no foolishness with Bio. That's all I got to say. We'll see what happens. Aaron might as well let Gary self-destruct because he cannot give Gary the proper help that he needs, and he's not going to listen anyway. So there you go. Fatima, I do believe Fatima is very patient. She has been, and either she's saying like, you know, I'm patient but don't abuse it, meaning she's either referring to Miss Mama's Karen popping up at their house again. Tony calling Zach to meet up at that hotel to talk about that stock thing, or she might be talking about a combination of both, because we know they have good communication, so I'm sure Zach is going to tell her. I'm hoping Fatima comes home while Karen's out there, but we'll see what happens next week. Either way, Fatima's not threatened, and I'm here for it. I love to see it. I feel like she's good, and we saw that with Andy earlier in the episode. I forgot to mention that, like how Andy was like, how do you know I'm talking about Hayden? I'm not talking about what Zach has done. And Fatima's like, girl, I got that on lock, because she, Fatima is moving how she needs to move. And then lastly, Karen is such a liar. First of all, just before we even get into how annoying it is that we're still on this with her, she literally had just told Sabrina, y'all, earlier this episode that she was done making a fool of herself. I know I'm not the only one who saw her say that in the salon. So then why are you outside the house again trying to, oh my gosh. Then she lied again on the preview, talking about she need to talk about the baby. We all know she is not going over there to talk to Zach about that baby, because first of all, anything she had to say to Zach about that baby, she could have called or texted, and the only thing she needs to tell him is that it might be Aaron's baby as well. But you know what? She's not going to lead with that. If she even tells him, which I'm hoping that Tyler Perry doesn't make her that despicable. I hope that she actually does really tell him next week's episode. But if she even tells him, you already know she's not going to lead with that, because she knows that's the final nail in the coffin of her having any dealings with Zach, at least until the baby is born. Because now she's confirming what Fatima already knew, definitely, and what Zach felt, which is that it could possibly be Aaron's baby. So she ain't going over there to talk about that baby. She going over there to try to get him back and talk about them and try to spread her delusion on him and gaslight him and see if it'll work. But anyway, y'all, that's my episode review. Sorry to keep you so long. I wanted to make this one a little shorter. If you are not following me on Twitter, at that girl Kayla D, subscribe. Y'all like these comments up. Let me know what you thought of the episode and your thoughts about any of the situations. I love to talk about sisters. That's why I do this. And I will see you here again on Monday with my hot topic video, y'all. See you later and have a great week.